Welcome to the 50th edition of Podcasters, today with Rudolf Wagner. Welcome, Rudolf.
Welcome. Good morning, Doran.
Thank you for being here. Please introduce yourself, more than your name, of course.
Yes, of course. So my name is Rudolf Wagner. I'm a seasoned quality and regulatory professional. I'm now managing director of Adhocon. Previously, I was in pharma and in medical device industry in various roles, mainly quality and regulatory, and helped companies like Huma to gain for their software and medical devices appropriate certification and approval from authorities across the world. I've registered hundreds of thousands of products in 132 countries, so I have a pretty good overview what's going on. And now, of course, as everybody, I'm very interested what's happening with digital health, with AI, with machine learning. I think we are really entering a new phase, a new era of healthcare.
I couldn't agree more. And as you know, I also train doctors, and they're sort of not up to speed. But could you give us an overview of what's happening in the digital health landscape, especially if you look at AI, generative AI, conversational AI, and making healthcare conversational, and then after that, we have rules and regulations, and they sort of are like a blanket over all of it. So if you could walk us through that.
Yeah, what I see, I mean, I can speak now with the experience and talking to hospitals, doctors, but also a lot of manufacturers and programmers and software developers and founders. I see mainly two areas. One is the administrative area where AI and software tools mainly help with the administrative burden. Hospitals, physicians, doctors, and nurses really cope every day. And that starts from documentation, continues over, for example, giving patients information on their disease, on their treatment, explaining treatments in light language so that everybody can understand that, where large language models are currently used. Then it goes on over paying. Medical education is very hot at the moment. A lot of universities have introduced large language models into training medical students, future doctors, basically. So that's the let's say what I call the unregulated light touch, where really existing information, which you could also replicate on paper, is currently digitalized and further enhanced with AI. And then we have the other side, where we have treatment and diagnose, where basically existing medical data is used to train models, large language models, but also machine learning models, pictures, text, healthcare record data, in order to find common patterns which can be used to quicker diagnose or even diagnose something which is hidden. If you don't have the experience, if you're not a specialist doctor, which are hidden to really diagnose patients, and subsequently, if you have a huge conglomerate of data, to treat patients better and give them the gold standard treatment right from the beginning. So these are the two areas I see currently.
Well, this of course sounds very beautiful and shiny. But there is a big but. I hear everybody talk about the beautiful advantages. And of course, they're there. I see them. But as many advantages there are also as many inherent risks involved. And you hear a lot less people talk about it. Of course, the regulators, you hear them talk about it. Like, for instance, we heard about Epic introducing OpenAI or ChatGPT into their software, where they have installs everywhere. So basically the data from all over the world where they have Epic is being used to train their models and backward. How do you view that? Because there must be some risks involved nobody thinks of. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is a huge field, and who follows me on LinkedIn knows that I'm really critical sometimes, and not because I don't share the enthusiasm. I share the enthusiasm very much, but it is there are risks which are sometimes forgotten about, while you get carried away by the sheer possibilities you can think of AI and machine learning can bring in future. And it starts, if we go to the roots of everything before we touch on the regulators, where I also have a very strong opinion about, but if we start with the roots, with the training, we
Training of the
don't.
models or the doctors?
No, training of the models.
Okay.
Because that is the foundation of everything. What the model doesn't know, it can't output, whether to doctors, whether to patients, to medical students. So the foundation of every model, every AI is at the beginning very dumb, very empty in knowledge, and when you start giving it training data, then it starts, connecting dots, gaining all that knowledge, and combining it, to predict the output, basically. And when you think about, the ideal scenario is that your model is trained on every health record ever created, including healthy people. That would be the 100% case.
But healthy
And
people don't go to the doctor.
and that's the point, right? If you run a marathon, you have symptoms, but these symptoms are, connected to you running the marathon the other day, right? You don't go to the doctor. So the AI, first and utmost, only knows about people with diseases. And then we have from this 100% all-inclusive possible training, we go downwards, and every step down and every exclusion we have to make, because we either don't have the data, or it's not well annotated, or it's from a time before. And even if you think about COVID, that never existed before. We faced that situation 2.5 years ago for the first time, right? Because during the Spanish flu, no records were created in a way that you can use it for training. So there's always already, in the 100%, there's already uncertainty of things we don't know. And from there, we go downwards. We exclude maybe minority population. If you think about EPIC, which will be predominantly trained on Western countries' data.
Yeah, because I just realized, if you think about EPIC as an example, if you look at Africa or African countries, India and China, they're not going to be using EPIC. So the biggest part of the world population is not going to be in there. Yet these people travel all over the world. They migrate, or they flee, or travel. They're not going to be in the data set.
And that exactly that.
Or Russia even.
Yeah, South America, right? And we know that we have similar physiology, but not the same, right? And we know that, for example, when you think about drug, when you submit for a new drug, you need to take into account different physiologies. You need to do clinical trials in different areas of the world to cover possible physiological differences. So from that 100% case, we are already down a few percentages. Then EPIC and other EHR providers, right? A lot of not so developed countries, to say that, work on paper or on locally developed systems, so they are not covered, right? So we are going down. And then the data which is available to, and we stay with that example, EPIC, is from hospitals which have, for example, specializations. So you have already then a even narrow data set. And from these specializations, you might have not so well consented data, so data you can't use for training. So you go down already, and at the end, you end up at a low 2-digit percentage at best. And from these, and when you think about a disease that has a normal distribution curve, we assume that, That's the assumption. Sometimes a little bit steeper, sometimes a little bit broader, but overall, you always have extremes. People with additional conditions which you might not have in your training data. So somebody who has, for example, a cardiological disease might have diabetes, might have, and then they get to the extremes. And now you can say, well, and that's where we are with the industry, who currently say 87% passing the medical exam, like MedPalm 2, is enough. That's good enough because every medical student would pass the exam with 87%. But 87%, if we transfer that to a AI or machine learning model, with Epic for treatment or diagnose, means 13% of patients are left out. And when you think about how many patients are diagnosed or treated every year in all countries, 13% and even 1%, if we think about 3 sigma, even 0.3% means a few hundreds, a few thousand patients, which get either false positive or false negative results. And I think that's an ethical decision regulators, the industry, and the patient associations, which have not been yet included in all the discussions. Currently, it's an industry discussion or industry-driven discussion. It's not a patient-driven discussion or patient-centric discussion, need to be included. For better and quicker treatment, are we as a society okay to have the same false positive or false negative diagnosis and treatments as we may have today with human doctors? If we say yes, we accept that, then
That's an interesting.
Then that's a fair point. But we have to make that decision. Because
who is going to make that decision? Because
who's going to make that decision? Because currently, and now we come to the regulators, because you asked that, and I'm speaking a lot. But
before you go to Rudolf, before you go to the regulators, I just realized one thing. If you look at Europe, for instance, and the United States, we know the southern countries of Europe have a totally different diet than the northern countries. That is never in a health record, what you eat.
No,
unless you go to the dietitian, but otherwise it's not in there. If you go to the States, with the amount of people that are obese over there and the diet over there, so how there, I understand there must be some connection, but the variance is much bigger than the normal distribution. It can't be the same because we know diet has a huge impact on health. We know certain diseases don't occur in the Mediterranean countries, or because they have a different lifestyle. They eat differently. So if you think about that, then it's actually the 13% is probably a lot bigger than the 13%. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the other way around, that it works for 13%, but it doesn't work for 87% because you leave out some really relevant information, or leave out and don't correct for the differences in lifestyle or in food habits or what have you.
Absolutely. And, the deeper you dig, the more of these things. When you think about the opioid crisis in the US,
that is not Vicodin and that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Or now fentanyl is very big in the US. That is not a thing in Europe, because opioids are not that widely prescribed in Europe than compared to the US. We know that. So if you have predominantly US health records for people with back pain, let's assume you build a machine learning tool on AI, for back pain, which is a common disease across the world, right? A lot of workers have back pain. Now, you might have side effects due to the opioid use in the US, which you might not find in Europe. So the AI is trained on something which it will not find and look for in Europe. And like you said, with the diet, there are so many variables you have, which you have to think of. And the point with and now we are closing a little bit the loop. When you think about what you said is absolutely correct and spot on. When you think about And I take my famous example, MedPalm 2. We do not know what the training data is. It is not yet published. We can't even tell you, that it's good for and that it's not good for. Like you have with every medical device or every drug, there's an intended use. There's a what you can use the drug or the medical device for. It is clearly described and somehow prescribed. You cannot go off label.
That's why you get the certification based on the use, on the purpose.
And because of what you have it built for. If you train...
And test it.
Yeah, and test it, exactly. And now, and I know a few doctors from my medical studies, so friends of mine who are really practicing, they are using OpenAI. And I know that some emergency doctors in the night, when really a lot of patients come in, they start using it at least to write the medical report. But we don't know what OpenAI knows or what it was trained on from a medical perspective. Which data does it have really to predict? I mean, it's pretty.
And here's another interesting thing. Recently they discovered in the cardiology department that the way men and women have heart problems and react to medication is actually totally different. So even within the Western world, and this is fairly recent, so the data is not there yet. We're only discovering how far that goes. So even within the data set, within the Western world, it's not going to be 100% correct. So that it's an extra inherent danger because we don't know what we don't know.
Exactly. And the question is also, you as a doctor, and I think, and I mean, OpenAI did a great job to create trust into AI, right? Because the results and the early fascination, and I mean, I use it too. I mean, right? But it's so fascinating what it can do and what it provides as an answer. You get, I think, a false perception of trust, because you start trusting. It gives you on easy questions, it gives you very good answers and very sophisticated answers, and then it creates a wrong perception of trust. And now we come to the point of the regulation. I think the regulation we have is very good, because it's both. It has the industry in mind. When you look at the software as a medical device regulation, which I sometimes post under articles or post myself, it is very good and lean enough, I think, because there are various examples who went through that, to really get the trust and show that it's beneficial and safe for the patient and doctor to use. But software is very difficult to hold back. And when you think about, if you place something on a market, a hardware device today, a hardware medical device today, it needs to go through customs. That is checked if it has the appropriate labeling, if it has the appropriate certification. The distributor needs to be named and registered. The distributor needs to fulfill 12 checkpoints, right, which includes CE mark certification and so on. With software, Google's Play Store, Apple's App Store, and even Microsoft Azure, they don't check it. They don't check regulatory things. And you can distribute your medical device by not crossing the border and not crossing the border checks or custom checks within a day today. You can distribute your medical app within a day today. And I always say that when people ask me, you can program an app in a day, you can write a web page in a day, make your claims, make your statements, and you can distribute your medical app within a day. So in 3 days, you're worldwide available with your app. And software and the regulators, from my perspective, besides having a very good regulation in place, have two issues. First, they are not funded. They don't have IT experts and software experts yet, right? They are ramping up, and you see job postings all over the place where they look for software experts, but they don't have the funding. When you think about 300,000 apps in the app stores with a medical label, how would you check that? You would alone need years to check what is currently on the market, while every day there are new software and AI tools posted. That's
It's
number
like
one.
having a leak and keeping the tap open.
Exactly. You're running always behind. And even if you enforce your regulation, let's say you find somebody who is not appropriately certified the software as a medical device, and even if you try to enforce, what happens? It disappears from the App Store, but the code is not gone. The day after, it has a new lookalike, it has a new name, a new company bind, but it's still the same code, and it's again up on the App Store. So I think the regulators, and I think we need to all together, the whole supply chain for software need to work together to ensure patient safety, because that's the ultimate goal. The regulation wants to keep patients and doctors safe. The industry wants to benefit patients while keeping them safe. And we as patients want to be safe. I will be a patient myself in a few years, hopefully
Not.
I stay healthy a long time, but at one point in time, I might need AI-assisted care in a hospital. And then I want to be rest assured, maybe in the darkest moment of my life, that what they use, whether hard or software, is safe for me and does not add additional harm. That's the ultimate goal.
I fully agree. I'm trying to process this because basically you're stating a problem that from the outside at first looks how the hell are we going to solve this, but shouldn't you then put that burden on app stores? Say, okay, if something qualifies as a medical device or has any medical relationships, it should be checked on the following standards. And if you don't want to do it, just don't put it on the app store, and we'll make a special medical app store, which is governed by regulators or something that is funded by the companies that want to be on there. So make it more expensive. So if you want to make a quick buck, that's impossible because you need to put up, let's say, $100,000 or euros to be in that app store. So for the small ones, it will be impossible. And then no venture capitalist is going to fund a company that didn't jump through the hoops of the regulators, because it's not going to be an asset; it's going to be a liability. So shouldn't we put the rules and regulations all the way in the beginning? And if you're genuine and you want to do the right thing, not just make a quick buck at the expense of patients, which I sort of have the feeling that that's what's happening, then you need to be a serious company with well-funded and with the understanding that you need to jump through the hoops, like with a regular medical device or a medication, that it needs to be up to certain standards and pars, period. And if you don't want to do that, then, so I envision a medical app store within Google, within Apple, within whatever, which will be more regulated if you want to sort of safeguard this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm now a couple of years in that industry, and although I have spent a lot of time on it and also, spoke with some regulators, I think there are many ideas, but what is practical? And as you said, we want to help patients. We want to leverage the new technology to the best, right? To help more patients and there is huge potential. And as you said, a special medical app store, which is where the release is basically maybe having an additional step from an authority. That is a wonderful idea. I never thought about that, but that is a really good idea. On the other hand, what I see with my clients, for example, they come when they are bootstrapped or seed funded. so they don't really have that financial power yet. But to jump to the Series A funding, they need to have use cases or even demonstrate that their MVP is marketable.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to be regulatory compliant, and I fully understand the point, right? I also fully understand the startup, the founder's issues, the founder's dilemma. If you want to be regulatory compliant, you would need your whole seed funding and more. You know, when you think about 60K for a CE mark, for a class 2 ACE mark, notified body cost, audit cost, and so on. There's no consultant yet who can help you with. US FDA is a little bit cheaper and they have a waiver for startups. But, you know, there are some fees associated and you need help. While you need to spend the money you have on the development of the app. So you have the founders have two choices. Either they develop a great app and maybe buy training data, because training data currently costs too. If you want to train your AI and you don't have backup of existing customers like Epic, you need to buy the training data. You need to buy the X-ray images. You need to buy electronic health records anonymized. That's expensive. Or you be regulatory compliant. So we put them in a very miserable position, you know, and that is money driven, unfortunately. Investors don't invest until they see that product has potential also to be regulatory compliant. I do myself a lot of regulatory due diligence for investors, and they want to know, are they compliant on the market? Well, they can't, because the money was not enough to cover the whole plate, right? So that is one issue we have. Then
It's a
the
catch-22.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I thought also there were discussions about, and there are some regulatory initiatives around change control of existing devices, that you have a change control plan instead of change, review change, and then release, right? That is a step in the right direction. There are also discussions I heard from some European authorities that AI will be used to review software as a medical device.
That is scary.
Yes and no. We have seen that initiative already in pharma a couple of years ago. Some may remember the parametric release, which was accompanied by design, quality by design. Now I have it. So that was control by design in my mind, but it's quality by design. That you basically define beforehand what are the parameters you need to check to prove that the device is safe and efficient. And with software, you can, when you think about, we have now GitHub's Copilot, we have OpenAI's code interpreter, there are possibilities, technological possibilities to check source code. You know, if there's any harm built in or not, right? So there is a possibility, but I have seen some posts and some articles and also some podcasts where people are asking for a new regulation for AI as a medical device. And when you look into the history of regulatory changes, it was never to the leaner or to the less strict in the past. So whenever you ask for a new regulation, you might get something which is even stricter than you have it today. And I think until we have that automatic check of software for medical use, that we are years away from that. I would say 2 years.
I think there's also another tool that could be implemented. I just realized that. Basically, if you supply a device or a medicine or whatever, any supplier or manufacturer needs to have a liability insurance. What if you go, say, as an app store, you say, okay, well, you need to have a liability insurance up to, I don't know, 100 million or something crazy. In order to get that kind of insurance, you need to be audited. There's no insurance company that's going to give you that kind of liability insurance unless they know and understand what's happening. So you just say, okay, this is the filter, and if you don't have the insurance, you're just not on the platform.
No, that could be also a way. But this is the point, whether you let the app stores check the software or the liability insurance checks the software. Somebody at one point needs to check the regulatory compliance, and then we are back to square one, where we say startups, and AI is currently a startup area, right? And if they don't have the funding for that to get to the point where they are regulatory approved, which costs, then it's very difficult to show to either party, insurers, authorities, or the app stores, that they are regulatory compliant. It is so either we have, I think there are many points where you can, like you said, there's many areas of attack, so to say, liability insurance, which I really like, that you have a kind of a mandatory insurance. I think that is a very good point. You have to have it for your car. Why not for your software as a medical device, or for your medical device, right? That would definitely benefit. But I don't think there's yet the I haven't seen a solution where I think which balances patient safety and industry interests in the same way that both are satisfied.
Now, that is all true. But on the other hand, we need this kind of innovation in order to move forward. So we know this is always a struggle when something new happens. There's a lot of stuff not out there, and it needs to be arranged or regulated, or new legislation need to be made. I mean, legislation is always a regulation behind on innovation. And I think in that sense, whether it's the FDA or CE, whatever, they could cooperate more and more with the startup scene in order to be on top of what's happening. And I wouldn't say ahead, but it's like coexisting. Okay, we move forward together, and we understand what you need in order to warrant the patient safety. Okay, what is our role as a society or a government or whatever you, to get the innovation out there, to not stop it, because eventually it's going to improve the outcomes, but it takes time. And basically you want to have guardrails as you move forward. And there's one thing we didn't touch, because this was all about patient safety. But then there's this thing about what happens to my data if all these systems are using your data to move it to a central system where it learns. How do we know I'm not in there? And how do we know that they safeguarded? They say it's anonymized. How do I know? Where can I check it? I can't.
No, currently you can't. Pretty good. So, I mean, every at least for Germany and some other European countries and the UK, for example, I know you can request your data, right? GDPR made it possible that you go and request the data somebody has saved about you. But now it's anonymized. So at one point, and there we are digging a little bit the training data hole. Now we are returning to that hole we digged already and dig it a little bit deeper, because in that moment somebody has used your current electronic health record for training in an AI. It's locked in a way because it's anonymized, ideally, and we, for the benefit of the doubt, we currently assume that anonymization and your privacy is properly kept. That's a completely different topic. Can you check that it's properly anonymized? No, you can't. As a patient, definitely you can't. It's almost impossible, even if you request. As an industry, we don't know. We actually don't know how data processors and people who storage data are actually acting with your data in terms of anonymization and the different levels in between. But even then, returning to the training data, and that's also data privacy. I'm today in the hospital. I leave the hospital as cured or at least stabilized. Then my electronic health record at that moment in time is locked. It's ended, right? Then it might be anonymized and used for training. But I return in 2 weeks to the hospital because my situation worsened, and they find that my disease has taken a wrong turn because of the drugs I've taken, because I have an additional condition which was not regarded or unknown before. That information, this updated information, is lost. It's not used for AI. So when we see with OpenAI and ChatGPT that it gets worse over time, we might also see that over time with medical AIs, because the evolution of a patient over the years and its disease and its progression, or not progression, hopefully, is not continuously fed into the AI models. Because of the anonymization, you then cannot connect the dots anymore. That's just a side note on the privacy, but actually you can't check. Even if you request the data somebody holds about you, if it's properly anonymized, nobody will know who you are, so they can't give you any record back. I think the patients, if they consent that data is used to train AI models, I think we need to be honest, your data is gone. You have no chance anymore to get it back. From my perspective, I don't see any possibility to opt out later on.
But did you see any hospital asking anybody any consent? A hospital that uses Epic to use your data for training purposes?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you actively have to opt out because you're automatically opt in, sort of?
Yeah, well, sometimes hospitals say in additional consent they give you to sign that if you're okay that your data is anonymously used for research purposes. Now, you could say that training an AI model is a research purpose, right? You could say that. I think I'm not a privacy lawyer, and here I'm reaching far out of my area of competence, right? So a privacy lawyer might be the better guest here to answer that question. But I think, yes, you're right. The question of automatic opt-in or a active opt-out when you go to a doctor or hospital is a very interesting one, and it will be more concerning now in the next couple of months, because
they did something in Holland, which, if you think about it, is crazy. And the regulatory body, or the organization that collects data about the medical field, medical treatments, and translates that to the insurances and government policy. They asked mental health care providers to supply data on their patients, diagnosis, etc. Basically breach of privacy. But they collect all that data, they say they anonymize it, but they need to give that. And a lot of the mental health care will say, like, we're not doing it. We're asking our patients to actively opt out, to not do it. There's also lawsuits about it, because they say it's a breach of our, how do you say that? Privacy, or the secrecy we have to keep about our patients. And the government is sort of demanding it. And this is turning into a whole discussion. It sort of went down a bit, but it will be coming back, because if a lot of people sign, you're not getting the information. They can't do anything because they don't have enough valid data to make policies. Or I understand the reason why they would want it, because it's a concern. There's the amount of people that go to a mental health or have mental health problems is rising, so they need to understand what to do in order to improve that, or to predict how many psychiatrists or psychologists we need, etc., etc. But at the same time, it can't be at the expense of the privacy of the patient. So it's really interesting what's happening there, and I don't think Holland is the only country where that happens. So I think that is a worrying thing. And one coding mistake of one person in the process, that would mean that your medical record is out there on the street, and they can promise all they want. We know mistakes are being made, and data leaks are in the news every day. So interesting enough, I wouldn't trust it. And thinking about it, if my hospital uses Epic, I will ask them. It's like, I don't want my data to be shared with AI because I don't trust it. I trust AI to do smart stuff with it and to learn, but not a commercial company.
That is a very interesting comment you made at the end.
Not a commercial company. No, and if it's an independent industry, independent society or something, organization that vows to protect the privacy of everybody, that does not have any connection to any other system. It only produces metadata or statistics. Then maybe it would be okay if the hospital guarantees me total privacy. But if they can't guarantee, and there is a punishment for a data leak. So if my data was to be leaked, they would have to not pay me, but some organization that does good work for healthcare. Let's say per person that the data was leaked, 100,000 euros. I think they will take data privacy very seriously because it's too expensive to leak.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be my personal gain. That is, you understand what I mean, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. When you just said that, what came into my mind was were the metadata leaks, where Facebook lost data, and various others. I mean, we have seen so many data leaks over time, right? There's not, and just recently, the hospitals who lost data, or at least let's say,
or someone who loses a laptop with data, or
or the
thumb drive.
Yeah, exactly. Or the 32 terabytes Microsoft had online publicly for a short period of time.
Oops.
And I think, and I was thinking about that there was no outrage, right? I mean, if today a company loses your credit card data, there is no public outrage. There is no public discussion, right? We got, and I'm sorry to say, but even after Snowden, where we learned that we are absolutely shared, right? We are basically, our personal data is not personal anymore. There is no personal space when you are online. Everything is known by many bodies, and there is no person. And I haven't seen the society, speak up and say, this is something we do not want, stop it now. There was a short period where we were all outraged, but then it settled, and we accept that things happen. And I was also thinking, while you were speaking about insurance companies, what if your healthcare premiums? I mean, I'm in a comfortable position in Germany, right? Because we have governmental health insurance, but even there we have to pay, meanwhile, additional fees, right? Beyond the
basic insurance
premium. And what if this data is used kind of to calculate your personal health risk? What if and we're coming back about this commercial driver, as you said, Epic. We don't want our data to be shared with a company where shareholders benefit, right? I think at the end, the shareholders, that money earns money with health data is something, right? When we want to stop that and get control and get it contained in a way, then you should not be able to make money out of this data. It should be possible.
I agree, but actually what you're saying, or my conclusion, is that healthcare shouldn't be commercialized and everything around it. So I understand healthcare needs suppliers, but that was also the problem in Holland. At least it's a discussion with the pharma industry, where they make specific medication which is extremely expensive, and then insurance companies say, "Oh, we don't take it into the the insurance because it's too expensive, and then the government steps in and starts negotiating. It's a crazy situation where we have to put a monetary value on life or quality of life, which is actually, if you think about it, it's sort of crazy. And there, I truly hope that AI is going to change that, because the one thing AI does really well is democratizing knowledge and information. And did you read that story that the parents of a kid, I don't know, they saw 17 doctors and couldn't figure out what he had, and then they used I think ChatGPT to put in the health record, and it came up with the actual diagnosis, and it was correct. And none of the previous doctors was able to diagnose him correctly, because it was apparently very complicated, and that can be sometimes it can be very difficult. But this is the thing. Is one of the points we wanted to talk about is all these doctors. They're trained in such a way in their little, or actually big column. I mean, we have specializations and specializations within specializations, and they know everything that is to know about that, and they develop a certain gut feeling in that specific field. But if it's outside their field, they have no idea how it's connected, unless you're a really, really good innovative doctor and you are interested in a lot more. Like, for instance, the old general practitioner in the old days, they had to do a lot of stuff. They knew a lot more, were not afraid to do things before they sent someone to the hospital. And now a lot of the general practitioners are just traffic controllers. They direct someone, oh, you go to the left, you go to the right, you go straight, you don't go anywhere. And maybe I don't intend to insult someone, and it's not even their fault, because the pressure on them, the amount of patients they have to see, in Holland at least, the amount of patients they have to see, the amount of time the insurance company basically gives them, and then within that time, they're obliged to record so much data in order to explain what they did or what they didn't do and why they did it, that at least 1/3 of the time with the patient is into typing into the computer, not even looking or checking the patient, just entering data. Which, if you think about it, is we're a bunch of loony bins. We're wasting these amazing brains of these amazingly well-trained people, which, I mean, our society trained for maybe €1 million, and then we ask them to type. Seriously, my brain explodes, where they should be talking to the patient, listening to the patient, looking at the data. Maybe AI assisted. That wouldn't be a bad idea, having AI interpret the historic data, entering the new information. Basically, the patient. My assumption would be, if a patient comes to the doctor, send him a triage bot, ask him based on the historic information which the AI already analyzed, ask questions, what are the problems, etc., and get all the relevant information in. And then when the patient is there, you've done 50% of the work. Then the 15 minutes you have for the patient are 15 quality minutes, because everything is already sort of interpreted. The data is already recorded. The answers of the patients are in the system. Let's start talking and treating the patient instead of recording data. But this is my frustration, my opinion. But I think AI could make a...
I share that.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy. But I think AI can make a really, really big difference. And that also brings us to the training of doctors. When we had the pre-talk, there was this the gut feeling of doctors. You have these really good doctors, and I think my father was one of them, who actually talk and listen to the patient and start thinking, like, how's this connected to my field? Is it actually my field, or is it what I'm seeing just an appearance in my field, but not actually a problem I can solve? And then having the balls to say, okay, this is not, not starting to treat, start to think and do research instead of immediately giving medication for just what you see or hear. And this is this gut feeling. The more we train doctors in protocols, the more we let AI do things, we stand the risk that the doctors lose their gut feeling because they don't see that anymore. How do you view AI helping doctors to develop that gut feeling instead of losing it?
Well, I mean, the AIs are great, for learning to double check what you think, right? Instead of waiting for the next lecture, lecture or seminar where you can share like your homework, when you have these case studies, when you go through and say that would have been my way of diagnosis, and that is my assumption of what the patient has. During your studies, you do that a lot, and their AI can give you immediate feedback if the AI is properly trained.
And you know what AI could also do there? Because I think that's one of the problems we also have. What questions should you have asked and you didn't ask?
Exactly. The communication with the patient, absolutely. How to tell patients, how to ask patients, how to do a proper questioning at the beginning to get really all the details, family history, and so on. That's right. And I think it can also help to train future doctors in empathy. How do you convey really bad news? Right? What is the best way? And maybe have an interactive chat with the AI and train your communication skills with patients. On the other hand, I was following you. It's not only the gut feeling. We have, when you think about oncology boards, right? Over the last decade, doctors have learned that staying alone in your small room and making something up, right, is not the right way. So what we have built is interdisciplinary teams where you have doctors for oncology, cardiologists. Everybody sits there and discusses the patient record and the patient itself to find the best possible treatment. We have that in Germany. We have that all around the world. Or if you think about the stroke units, not long ago, a stroke was treated by one doctor. Meanwhile, if you are early enough, we have learned that treating a stroke multidimensional with people who train speaking, immediate movement therapy, not only treating the stroke itself and the blood clotting, but also, all these side things can improve the outcome very much. And we all talk about value-based healthcare, and what we now try, and what I see a trend is that we now go the opposite direction. We tell doctors, hey, you can use this AI. So we individualize care again by the doctor and his AI assistant. And I think that really worries me. I see a tendency, but it's not yet clear if these interdisciplinary treatments for the best possible care and outcome, if it will persist as it is today and maybe even be enhanced with AI, so that now you have your interdisciplinary team plus an AI tool or multiple.
So an extra team member.
Yeah, extra team member. Or if we go back the other way because the cost pressure is so high and we have a lack of resource. I mean, when we speak about using AI, we should not forget that there is a huge cost pressure and a lack of resources, a lack of human resources in the medical sector worldwide. We have lost, during COVID, every country has lost tons of nurses, unfortunately, who just couldn't bear the pressure anymore and left. We know that we will face in the couple upcoming years a decline in doctor numbers, right? We will have less doctors in future. So
and an increase in patients because we have an aging population.
And an increasing population itself, not only aging, but the whole population increases.
And the one thing I do see, which we talked about, that diet has an influence on health and healthcare. And I think that air pollution is another factor that needs to be factored in. That has an influence, a long-term influence on health as well. So we'll see in the coming years, as we've seen the amount of people with allergies and lung problems arise. The curve was very steep. It still is. But these people are getting older. And so these problems, if they stay in the same area, they're not going to become any better. It's getting worse. So the pressure is going to rise through different factors. And we're not training enough doctors. And in Holland, people are going to get angry for me for saying this. We're training 70% of the doctors we're training are female, which they're as good a doctor as male doctors. That's not the point. But a lot of the females want to work part-time. So we're training enough doctors, but we're not training enough hours.
That's true. And to help,
and it's probably the same in Germany.
It's very much the same. And also the trust level has decreased, right? While we were clapping at, where we were at the beginning of the pandemic, right? We were clapping, we were standing outside, clapping for nurses and doctors and firefighters and all these professions,
but not raising their salaries. Not the doctors, but not raising. That didn't make sense. The clapping didn't cost any money.
Exactly. But adequate pay, nobody talks about anymore about that. The pandemic is gone. Nobody talks about that. We are losing beds, right? Because again, it needs to be profitable.
Yeah.
And the other thing is also that the frustration of patients, and as I said at the beginning, it's a multi-dimensional problem. If you touch one area, you immediately touch 15 other areas. We have the climate change, so we will also face a lot more cases and hospitalizations due to the increasing temperature. I think we are not yet aware of that this will happen, but we
I didn't think about that.
We had very warm summers in the last 5 years, the hottest summers ever. And when you look at the aging population and the people, let's say above 80, they really suffer from high temperatures and need to be cooled down and treated and so on.
So this is so funny because I always joke in the Northern Europe, we've built our houses to keep the cold out and the warmth in. And now when summers are becoming warmer, we have a problem because the warmth, the houses warm up and the warmth stay in the house. So unless you have an air conditioning, which of course is a problem because it uses a lot of electricity, there's no way to escape. Just hydrate.
No,
but
exactly.
Inside and outside, it's a disaster.
No, and I mean, we know that now we got into socioeconomics. We know that the aging population also has a financial crisis. They are not well funded, right? The pensions are not rising in a way that they can keep up with them. As I said, multidimensional problem. And at the end, the trust level in doctors went down a bit because, if you currently in Germany, you wait very long for an appointment if you're not privately insured, if you don't have a premium insurance, right? Okay. You wait very long. And then you have 5 minutes with the doctor. You tell him what you have and you get a prescription and you are out. There's no empathic
it's a production
moment anymore. Yeah, it's a production line. You're one case of many. And I think that is also, like you said, we train doctors to write, to document in order to be paid properly, because the insurances only pay ICD codes. And now we start talking about value-based healthcare or outcome-based healthcare, and we think AI is the solution. So I think we need to look at the whole healthcare chain, starting by educating patients and doctors. How are they trained and how do they collaborate while economically, innovation needs an economical benefit. We should not believe, if you do not pay companies properly, that they have a tendency to innovate. That's true for drugs, but also for medical device and software companies, right? There needs to be an economical benefit. Otherwise, you cut down innovation to the bare minimum, right? And you cannot force by law. At the end, you can't do that. So.
Although a lot of the innovations come from technical universities or pharmacology studies, there's a lot of stuff happening there, and that's all government funded and then exploited by the industry. Or exploited is the wrong word, but
the universities I know, they have a lot of third-party sponsor programs where they are looking for third-party money because, and
And
I'm
then everything they figure out has to go to the sponsor.
we are turning a little bit in circles, and we've discussed we have started with your personal health data. Where is it going? How do you keep control? And I think Europe starts now, and there needs to be a combined effort, right? Government and industry need to sit together, not requesting from each other, because currently we have a kind of customer provider relation. The industry requests lighter regulation and the government requests safer products. You need to sit together. You need to sit together like
chicken egg discussion.
You need to sit together. The European health data space is one initiative where you could say, okay, listen, we make sure your health data is safe and is used in an appropriate way, and therefore we request the industry only to use that and fulfill certain requirements. That is an effort where you can drive innovation, but also keep every individual's interest in their privacy and data. That could be one effort. Is it perfect? No, it is not, because there are many flaws and open questions which have not been answered yet, and it takes too long. The AI development is too fast for privacy laws and regulations in medical devices.
So it should be self-cleansing.
Yeah.
It just occurred to me, in China, they have the philosophy that the doctor gets paid when he keeps you healthy. That was a long time. I don't know if they do it now, but that was for a long time the idea. So in essence, if you think about that, now on the scale we have a shortage of doctors and nurses, etc. So what if you turn it around and say, okay, we use AI to keep you healthy as long as possible? And that brings me to the part where consumers are using, or potential patients or patients are using generative AI like ChatGPT or other models or Bard or what have you, to ask questions about their health, and then decide based on that to go to a doctor. What if you could sort of put that in, if they want to, put that in people's life, and it sort of guides you through, I have no idea how, by the way, but it guides you through steps you take or steps you could take differently. It's like your personal health coach, and it sounds horrible as I say it, but it's like your digital GP that says, no, Duran, you should eat more healthy. Let me help you with that. Should we create a diet for this week so you eat less fat or whatever, or less sugar, and make sure you stay as healthy as potentially possible. I mean, you can't beat the genes. If you have them, you have them. So certain stuff will happen whether you eat healthy or not. We know that. But other stuff, it doesn't need to happen, and sort of all connected. And one of the things that hasn't been, if we know people are bothered by the air pollution, there's no doctor that tells anybody to move unless you have heavy asthma, you need to live in the mountains. Other than that, nobody tells you to move. I mean, they just give you anti-allergy medication and Ventolin type of medication, and good luck. And I think that is, if you think about it, you talk about quality of life, et cetera, and everything comes behind it. Why don't we sort of have this Chinese doctor philosophy, but installed within AI? But I decide whether I use it or not, and why I decide whether I allow it to look into my fridge or my groceries or whatever, my sports habits, and I think, or sleeping habits. And I think that, and I'm not talking about Fitbit, because that'll be too simple. But the scary thing is, if your Fitbit, for instance, uses all that data and starts connecting it to AI and other things, people have no idea what they're sharing and where it goes. Like the people that run and have that thing show where they run and how much they ran and how often, and share that with other people. That is training data, literally.
Exactly. It's training data, and that's always with every AI. The part you can use it maliciously. You could even profile when you find or where to find women after 6 p.m. Right? You can even create geographical hotspots and so on.
That
There's
is not that's not on my priority list.
no, but of course you can always use data also in the opposite sense. The AI will answer you every question as long as
True.
it has enough training data to base its response on. Right.
So
So
if you
there's
hack,
always
see if you would hack Fitbit or one of those running apps, then I think that was actually done. One of those running apps was hacked. If
no,
I'm
I haven't seen that, but
I think
it
so.
doesn't even need to be hacked. We have seen that with OpenAI and Claude, where they have. I think it was Claude. I'm not. I don't want to say that. So we have seen that with large language models. Let's keep it in general, where by prompting, by shaping the prompt in a certain way, that you can extract data which was prohibited to be responded, right? OpenAI had that. Oh, I don't give you that instructions. My model prohibits this answer or whatever. But still, there was a way to trick it somehow
Yeah,
into giving the answer at the end. So
I
it doesn't
succeeded in one of them. That was very
ah,
scary. What you saw is like, okay,
yeah.
it's a,
See, Doran.
it's really
But
scary.
you don't need to hack anymore, right? And even if you want to hack today, you ask the code interpreter of OpenAI to write a program to hack for you. So today everything is possible. It's at your hands, at the AI. What you said is very true, and I think we are coming back to that outcome and value based healthcare idea, which was a big thing a couple of years ago. It calmed a little bit down. You don't hear so much anymore, but I think that's exactly the point. If you get an AI based companion which helps you to keep the right diet, who maybe asks you, listen, I saw what the Apple Watch, although not a medical device yet and not approved, at least for that use case, sometimes tells you, hey, there's a trend. I recognized you have done less steps in the last 7 days than the 4 weeks before, right? Who can identify trends, who can identify, if you think about variables, if your blood pressure rises slightly and you don't recognize it, right? AI could assist you with that and help you to identify potential negative trends much earlier than first symptoms may come up, right? And you can think that through in a couple of years. Maybe we have toilets who automatically analyze urine and the rest for potential diseases and residues. Everything is possible in the
Well, that's
future.
already happening, and there's already AI that where you for people, I think with the heart problem, they have a base sample of your voice, and they can predict a month ahead based on your voice. So if you speak the same sentence every morning into your phone, it goes into the data, and if there's a slight change in the way you read the sentence or speak, apparently the AI picks it up, and if it's like a couple of times, then it can predict when you will have heart problems. It tells you to go to the doctor to make sure you don't have it. And that's turning into predictive medicine, and I'm pretty sure that will go from heart problems to seizures or insults or whatever, or brain infarcts, or Alzheimer type of or Parkinson type of things.
We have
If
that
they
with
can, that's what
Parkinson.
they said. They look in there. They have a huge sample base, and they're going to look into that. Okay, what other diseases did we find? Could we have detected it? We have all this data of all these people that put it in every day, and now we go backward engineering. Could we have found the difference of, for instance, the appearance of Alzheimer and at what stage? So they can go back all the way to the beginning to see or to find the anomaly, and then train their system on these anomalies and see if other people had it as well. So this is really interesting, and that's going back to using AI or generative AI. do you envision where a situation or a future where the consumer, the pre-patient, starts asking questions about his health and sort of starts self-doctoring with AI before he or she goes to the doctor? I mean, people are doing it already, but it's dangerous because it also makes mistakes or asks really weird questions. Ask me all the questions I need, and it starts, And I asked doctors what it would do to them if the patient comes in. Oh, I asked ChatGPT. I gave it my medical record, and here are the 5 potential diagnoses I might have. That if you don't research those diagnoses and you say, well, it's not one of them. How do you know? Did you test me for it? No. So how do you know? Yeah, my gut feeling. Nobody's going to accept the gut feeling. So it's going to increase, in my opinion, it's going to increase the medical cost if the doctors, only if doctors or the medical field doesn't start applying AI themselves and sort of release some sort of generative AI option, which is made by the medical field for patients to, I wouldn't say self-doctor, but self-diagnose within certain boundaries where the data eventually, if the patient allows it, is being shared with the doctor. So he can sort of co-pilot as a human with another human, but with AI in between and speed up the process.
Absolutely. I mean, we have that already today, right, with Dr. Google. And there was an article last week or beginning of this week that Dr. Google was replaced by Dr. ChatGPT, right? And I think it's true. People always started to self-diagnose. I remember 10 years ago when I have a tendency to be a hypochonder. So I'm, everything, which happens to me is the worst case. And it always starts
the
with...
good thing is, when you find out, usually it's not the case. You feel great, right?
It is, but it's also stressful, and people always make fun. And I usually say, in descending order, it starts with an alien fetus implanted into me, right? And then come the diseases. No, but I think there was always in the history a tendency that people didn't trust doctors first and utmost. I mean, we have in Germany the right for second, third, and fourth opinion, if you want, and the right of choice of doctor. So that was always the tendency. People just not had the tools or the education to properly investigate themselves. Now they prompt. To properly prompt. And when we look into the future, I touched already base on variables and additional medical device, hardware medical device, where you even can measure. A couple of years, even it was fraud. We had the idea of lab on a chip, right? Where you just have 2 or 3 blood drops and you get analyzed at home for a variety of diseases. And I think if we spin that down a couple of years, maybe 2 to 3 years, we will see more and more connection of hard facts, measurements, variables, combined with a huge database of medical historic data with the what we had at the beginning, with a lot of footnotes about completeness of training data, possibility of false positives and negatives, but there will be a huge database and there will be AI. And yes, you can even think about that certain drugs in future can be automatically released instead of being prescribed, but you give the data to an approved AI, you answer some questionnaires, and then the AI with a high likelihood says, yes, you are approved to go to the pharmacy and fetch that drug, right? And you show the approval and you get your drug without even seeing a doctor. What do we need then doctors for? Well, I think we will need, if we still have doctors, we had that discussion before that we might train to less doctors, but maybe we will see that like we see today with remote patient monitoring. One doctor, one nurse can monitor hundreds, if not thousands of patients in parallel with proper flagging and so on. And maybe we will have doctors who approve AI models for use on patients. That still doesn't answer the question we had about my health data privacy and the right to opt out and what other implications it might have with my insurance premiums. But purely from a medical perspective, I see the trend at hospital at home, doctor at home, lab at home, combined with a AI, which not only treats you in that very moment, but as you said, and I think that's spot on, what we have today with these wellness apps who train you to quit smoking, who train you to eat more healthy, to move more, to even give you detailed training plans on how you can increase your personal fitness, right? If you combine all that, like you said, AI should keep us healthy, and I like that very much. You get treated, and then the AI, your personal health AI companion, stays with you and keeps you healthy, not
And
falling back into old habits, for example.
but at the same time, it keeps you healthy. But once it detects something that it can't do anything with, so that's a boundary. I think we should set. Then it should say, okay, you need to go to a doctor, and then there should not be a waiting list because given the fact that you try to live as healthy as possible for yourself, not for the AI, not for society, just for yourself, then I don't see it as a reward, but I think as a consequence, that if AI tells you, okay, I can't, there's nothing we can do or figure out to do about this, then basically it should automatically make an appointment with the doctor for you. So you're going to the doctor now because, there is something that, I can't figure out what it is, or I know it's not good, but, just go see a doctor. And the doctor has all that information. You permit it to share. It's up to you, not up to the doctor. You share, and then the doctor has all the information and understands, okay, these are the symptoms. You don't even have to ask all these questions. Then we're back at, you have 15 minutes with the patients, but it's actually 15 quality minutes because you already have so much information. You can go a level deeper or what have you.
But that, absolutely, and I fully agree with you, but that raises again the question, if you have your AI companion, right, and while you record your own symptoms or your daily living, right, your daily
vitals,
health, then it's primarily with your app. Who do you share it with, and what do we train AI on? And I'm just saying that because I'm always thinking about the next pandemic, and hopefully at least in my lifetime, I will not face another pandemic. But when you think about Spanish flu to COVID-19, there were multiple generations in between. So I hope I do not. But
there were actually quite a few, I wouldn't say pandemics, but epidemics. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, those happened in countries with lower incomes, etc. Actually, quite unfair if you think about it. And as a Western society, we kept it out of our worlds.
Bird flu, yeah.
Yeah, well, bird flu or some other horrible diseases. I forgot all the names, but I know a lot of people got really sick or died of it. And if you think about it, that's really unfair somehow. So why should other people suffer and we don't?
No, and it's exactly the discussion. It's an ethical discussion. When Western society have the most mature system to provide electronic health records, how do we include the world? How do we? You talked at the beginning about health equity and democratization. Thank you. Of healthcare. We need to include all of that. That's an ethical, like data sharing. If I want to be treated, somebody or many other people have to share their data that the AI can diagnose me in that very moment early enough that I could live. So is it then ethical for me or morally right to say I opt out? I do not help others. So, that's a discussion. There are ethical people who discuss that.
I agree it's an ethical discussion, but if it's brought to you in such a way that it's only being used for the good, and for the well-being and health of others, and not for commercial purposes. Because that's the point. I would opt out. If it is for commercial purposes? I've participated in medical research after surgery, but they specifically told me it's for this kind of research, for this new device or this new medication, and we need to understand what it works in this situation so we can help everybody else with the same condition. And it's academic research, you know. So, and there, I think you're adding value and for the good of others, if it's not, and not endangering yourself. Let's assume that. So not at expense of yourself, but you're giving something, and I think nobody intrinsically has a problem with that. If you only know and you have the certainty and the warranties and the guarantees that your data is safe and that not some criminal or some idiot is making money off your data, because that's where I think most people will draw the line if they think about it. A lot of people don't think about it, but if you think about it, I would draw a line there. If it's used for commercial purposes, then hold on. I had a discussion a long time ago in Holland. We had, do you remember the navigation system TomTom?
Yes.
Okay, they had an agreement with Vodafone. And what they did was Vodafone were sharing location data of subscriptions, the GSM chips, giving the geolocation to TomTom, where TomTom could tell people actually what Google is doing as well. Mm-hmm. Oh, you need to take a different route because there's a traffic jam. In terms of the people using TomTom, great. But there was nowhere in my contract with Vodafone, or I never signed an agreement that my location data, whether it's anonymized or not, doesn't matter, was allowed to be shared with anybody else. They never asked me that. So I went to a discussion with Vodafone about it, and ending in changing my subscription to another provider because I couldn't work it out with them. And it wasn't about money. It was a matter of principle. So if you think about that, that's the same thing here. If you tell me and you're honest about it, 9 out of 10 times, it's not a problem. If you're not honest about it, it becomes a problem. So I think the theme transparency, which we see in a lot of fields, especially in AI, is transparency and honesty is key to success.
Well, yes, absolutely. But commercial-driven companies have not shown a clear history of and a clear track record without wrongdoing in terms of transparency and honesty. I think, we are coming back also to the authorities and the regulators. There needs to be a system of checks and balances. There needs to be a joint decision of ethical considerations of how to do things, how much privacy do we give up for the greater good?
And what are the rights as a user or as a patient?
What are the rights as a user, as a patient? How can we ensure that no wrongdoing with the data is happening? Or at least that if I give up my anonymized personal health data, that it's not at a later point used against me because the health insurer raises the premiums, right? So something like that. And how do we include Africa, South America, all these Asia, countries who have not yet access because they do not have the appropriate systems in place and are not that or have differently progressed? I'm not saying they don't have it, but maybe because we know that Africa is very much on mobile phones or built on mobile phones, they have jumped over landline telephones, exactly, for example. So they have taken certain steps, or they have left out certain steps. So they might have already a system for electronic health record, but is it used? Can we include that? Can we make sure that the world's population is reflected in training data so that every patient worldwide can benefit from?
And if not, and I can imagine that takes time to get that in. If not, then the inherent biases that, and that's actually, it's going to be difficult, but the inherent biases that are in the data, they should be explicit. And so basically you unless the other information gets in, you can only use that data for, it sounds horrible, but people that are similar, in order not to have a bias in the data for the patients you are treating.
Yeah,
Right? Then it's congruent.
Yeah, a phenotype or a genotype subgroup of the human race, of human beings. I mean, we are all physiological difference, but there are common patterns, common pheno and genotypes across the world, and that is independent from race, gender, or whatever. It is just a fact. It's just a biological fact.
Yeah, I know. If I could and would and will ask you to look ahead, a couple of years ahead, and then if you could actually give me two scenarios. One, your dream scenario of what you would like it to look like, given the development of AI, LLMs on one hand, and that's on the medical side, and generative AI on the consumer side, using it. And getting that together. That's one vision I would like to hear. And then the reality check. What is actually going to happen? Because they might not be the same.
Yeah. So my outlook, or my dream is basically maybe the equivalent to ending world hunger, right?
You should be in the Miss Universe contest.
No, but honestly, honestly, it is that we all came together, government, commercial interests, investors, patients, and have found a way how we can share safely data so that everybody, everywhere on the world can benefit from the enhancements AI will bring to healthcare, so that we can not only keep or treat or diagnose patients early and properly with the right medication, so that every socio-economical factor, if poor or rich, is factored in. Everybody puts their fair share into the system, whether it's data or money or price to pay for drugs. It's a fair share socio-economical system where every person can benefit in case of need. That's as I said, that's the equivalent to ending world hunger. The reality check, I think, we will have a commercially driven system, because data is gold. We need to be very honest with ourselves. We will see a consolidation, and we see that already. Oracle and have a EHR partner, Google, Epic. We will see big conglomerates building up. I think the hospitals have not yet realized on how much gold they sit, on how much electronic health records, which are required for training AI. I think that the governments will move a little bit behind, but getting quicker in regulating and in trying to safeguard it. But we will face leaks. I hope not so many. I hope that not many people will suffer from AI. I have to say, I'm a little bit worried that we, as today, for misconduct of doctors, we have some cases every year. I think we will have a similar, slightly higher amount for misconduct of AI. And I really do hope that we all come together and find a way, to balance commercial interest with patient safety, and do not, and try to be fair in the health equity space, that we really try to include everybody worldwide. I know that's still a wish. I'm afraid that this will not happen, but I hope that AI helps us to get better.
Well, I can only agree and adhere to that. One last thought, or one last question, actually. If because you told me you also advise venture capitalists, right, to look at regulatory status of the potential investment. Let's move to the other side. If you are now in what would you advise to people that have startups in the medical world using AI. What would, if you look at regulatory stuff is moving ahead. So basically, rules and regulations are moving targets. Let's put it that way. And it's very hard to operate and develop where you have no idea what you need to adhere to. How would you advise those folks to move along? Because this is where a lot of your expertise is. What would you tell them if you're CEO, if someone would be a CEO of that company or owner?
Well, yeah, of course, best is to invest the money and be regulatory compliant. But as you said, that's not possible in a very early phase. Have your product. If you require training data, look for a partner. And there, what I usually tell startup founders, sometimes it's the clinic next to your office, next to your hometown, right? Talk to them, find a way. There's always a possibility to have a study pattern running to build up a not a clinical study, but a kind of, for example, usability study to show that while patients are on the normal routine and on the normal normal pattern of diagnosis and treatment, that your app is and your AI is kind of additionally helping and supporting. So make some studies to get use cases to gain experience. Right? Because with this data to show, yes, it's working and it's compared 20% better than the current analog diagnosis, there you can attract investors and then move after you have the money, move to a regulatory compliant. And there are many solutions. I don't want to advert, but there are many solutions to get really a very easy and helpful access. There are many consultants companies out there who can really help in a lean way and fashion, and that would be my advice.
Well, Rudolf, thank you very much for this information, this knowledge, and these insights. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I actually hope your dream comes true and it doesn't stay a dream, that we move to a world where AI is helping us all to, well, stay healthy or get healthy.
Absolutely, it was my pleasure. Thank you very much, Doran.
Well, hope to see you next time, maybe when there's innovations.
Would be pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.